City Commission on Human Rights.
I'm actually the chair and commissioner for the New York City.
The chair and commissioner. I am getting the vaulted titles wrong. Anyway, thank you so much for talking to us. We're at the IORA conference in Seattle, and you're doing some really interesting things. The New York City Commission has been very close to my heart because Dennis DeLeon, for many years, a Stanford Law alum, was director, and you have done groundbreaking things for decades, and you're doing some more stuff. If you could explain to people who aren't from New York and don't know what a Human Rights Commission does, tell us a little bit about the demographics of New York City, some of the intergroup conflicts that have taken place. There's been some real interesting demographic changes over the last several decades. Archie Bunker wouldn't recognize his old neighborhood now. Tell us a little bit about these demographic changes, what the Human Rights Commission does, and some of the trends you're seeing, as well as some of the latest projects you've been working on.
Sure. So the New York City Commission on Human Rights is the city agency that's mandated to enforce the city's anti-discrimination and anti-harassment protections. We do this in basically all areas of city living, so in housing, employment, public accommodations. We also have provisions against bias-based profiling by law enforcement, as well as something called discriminatory harassment. That is something like a civil form of hate crime. New York City is an interesting place. We're a large city. We're a city of 8.5 million, growing each day.
And its growth is driven by immigration.
Well, we're certainly an immigrant city, so there are areas of the city, for instance, one of our boroughs, Queens, is noted as being like the geographic area with the most number of languages spoken anywhere in the world because of the different immigrant groups and immigrant communities and families that call Queens home. So if you see that across all of the 5 boroughs, you certainly have quite diversity in terms of religion, national origin, of course, race, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation, gender identity or gender expression. And so a lot of campaigns that we have been working on the past 2.5 years, at least that I've been the commissioner there, has been really focused on reaching out to some of the city's most vulnerable communities that in the past may not have had strong relationships with government or the Commission on Human Rights. And groups that we're seeing today are particularly under attack when we're looking at some of the increases in either hate crime statistics or issues or events that show some sort of hate bias or hate attacks across the country. So affect locally but also nationally. So we've been focusing on outreach, for example, to transgender New Yorkers, to gender nonconforming New Yorkers, to immigrant New Yorkers, to Muslim, Arabs, and South Asian New Yorkers who are also experiencing times of uncertainty or, increased instances of Islamophobic hate. Immigrant communities throughout the city and communities of color throughout the city. Hopefully, if folks are seeing this, they've also had a chance to see some of the campaigns, the citywide campaigns that we've run in the past 2.5 years.
And you've done some. Excuse me. You've done some really effective videos. For instance, that targeted to help people lessen prejudice against transgendered youth.
Exactly. So I would suggest folks should check out our website. We're at www.nyc.gov/humanrights.
One more time?
Sure. www.nyc.gov/humanrights. And you'll be able to see some of the materials that we've putting out there for outreach, both from a Know Your Rights as well as Know Your Obligations perspective, and some of the videos that you're talking about that have the dual effect of saying to some of those communities, hey, this is New York City, you're a part of the fabric of New York City, we stand up for you, we believe in you, and also say to folks who would dare to discriminate that, we're not going to take that in New York City, that nobody in New York City has permission to discriminate.
And unlike some of the places in California where human relations commissions don't have subpoena or enforcement power, your entity does.
We do, and we're lucky for that. So there are over 22 categories of protection under the city human rights law, and people can file at the commission if they feel that they've been discriminated or harassed. People should call 311. They should ask for human rights. They could also call us directly at 718-722-3131.
One more time on that 7. We got the 311 part.
Sure. 718-722-3131. If you feel that you've been discriminated against or harassed, if you've seen somebody who's been discriminated or harassed, we want to hear from you and we will act on it. We're also lucky that we have a community relations bureau that helps to assist law enforcement. They're out there in the 5 boroughs. They're across the 5 boroughs and community service centers working on the ground with different communities and different constituents, making sure that if there are acts of hate or violence that we need to address, those are being sent to the Commission on Human Rights. If there's education or workshops that we need to do so that folks are aware of how to make their workforce more inclusive, we're providing that to folks. And also if people need cultural competency training in how to work with different types of communities that maybe they've had no exposure to, we want to be involved in that as well.
How many people comprise your agency?
So over the course of the last 2.5 years, we have increased significantly. We're now at a total staff headcount size of 151. So there's
I wish we had that in Southern California.
Well, there's a lot of folks who in New York City are dedicated. They are believers in human rights. They've left other jobs to come into the government at this very important time to show our people that local government stands up for them and cares about them.
What are some trends you're seeing with regard to intergroup relations in New York City?
Well, it's interesting. If I look at reporting across the agency, reporting of acts of discrimination or harassment have been increased by 60% just in the last year.
60% increase?
60.
And is there a difference in this increase in discrimination complaints versus hate crimes that we're seeing reported to the police department, for instance?
Well, I think it's interesting. So obviously hate crimes, it's criminal, that would be reported to the NYPD, the police department on things. But what we all know is that there are communities and individuals that, for various reasons may be reluctant to come forward to criminal law enforcement. Perhaps they've had some prior interaction with law enforcement, perhaps they're undocumented and they fear that if they identify themselves, they're exposing themselves. So what we found, over the last year, if you look at NYPD hate crime statistics, I think the reporting was that they're up about 30%. But contrast that to the Commission on Human Rights that has a community relations bureau and has the ability to be working with folks in a non-criminal law enforcement setting, where our increase is 60%.
This is incredibly interesting because we saw this in Orange County, California, that hate incidents or acts of discrimination are increasing at a clip that far surpasses the actual increase in hate crime. And you're seeing that in New York City.
Well, I think if you're looking at hate incidents, those would be a much broader category than what would generally, I think, be considered a hate crime. And like I said, in New York City, we have over 22 categories of protection. So for instance, a specific category of protection we have in New York City is immigration status. If people are being treated differently, if they're being discriminated, if they're being harassed or threatened because of their immigration status, that could also form the basis of a claim of discrimination under our law. So for instance, if somebody in the housing context is complaining about lack of heat or hot water, and then their landlord calls up ICE to retaliate against them, that could be a claim under the Commission's jurisdiction. That is something that we can investigate.
In New York City, if an undocumented person reports being a crime victim, how are they protected? In LA, we have something called Special Order 40.
Yeah.
Tell us about these protections for undocumented people, particularly in these times that are so terrible.
Sure. So Mayor de Blasio has made very clear that New York City values and protects the immigrants that make New York City, that call New York City home. And so, in most instances, NYPD would have no reason or no cause to ask for somebody's immigration status, and they won't ask for folks' immigration status.
So people in New York should feel free, no matter what their immigration status is, if they're victimized, to please call the police, or you.
Yes, absolutely.
And you also reach out to community and advocacy groups to serve as liaison as well, not just in discrimination, but in crimes as well?
Absolutely. I think it's a very important function of the Commission. Like any other relationship building between government and local communities is very important. The last 2.5 years that I've been there, we've grown our agency so that as new staff come on board, we've really prioritized language access. We've gone from an agency where we speak 6 languages across across the agency to now we speak 34 languages across the agency.
34 languages?
34 languages,
wow.
Yeah. It's very difficult to get a job at my agency if you don't speak the language in addition to English, because we believe very strongly that in order to properly serve the city, we have to actually sound like the city. They have to be able to communicate with us. And that's also one of the reasons I think that we have relationships and credibility with these communities, because they could effectively talk to us and effectively communicate what's going on with their family members.
We have data on hate crime in New York City, and the city's been great with giving us timely data. But with respect to discrimination or hate incidents, is there a difference in the composition or proportion of those complaints versus the crime complaints? Is one group represented a bit more with the discrimination complaints?
You know, we haven't kind of cross-surveyed the statistics of like hate crime stats versus the types of claims that come forward on the city human rights law front. What I can say on this human rights law, it's an overall increase of 60%. If I look just at claims of race, national origin, immigration status, religious discrimination, national origin, those are up by 30%. Similarly, if I look at claims of sexual orientation and gender identity and gender expression, we've more than doubled those in the last 2 years.
And New York,
just over the past
and New
year,
York, like California, protects that, even though we don't have federal legislation.
Explicitly. We've protected sexual orientation under statute since 1986 and gender identities and gender expression since 2002.
Is there anything, any piece of advice that you would have for less densely populated areas that don't have the level of staffing that you have, or any advice that you would have for human rights commissions or even human relations agencies that are NGOs in dealing with discrimination and hate in different parts of the country?
Sure. I mean, I think that there's a lot of fear out there right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. That's why I think the relationship building component is so important. People, I think, are in a space right now where they don't really know what to make of government. It's something they fear. There's a great deal of uncertainty. We have to let folks know that at the local government level, we are supporting our communities. And part of that is making ourselves accessible. The relationship building, the representation in government agencies, I think is so important. Being out there with your faith leaders, your houses of worship, your CBOs on the ground, getting to know the constituents that you have in your area.
Well, New York has had a history of championships in baseball, and now we've got champions in human rights. It is such a privilege to talk to you today, Carmelyn. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of a very busy schedule of yours. I know that you're doing important work here at this international conference. Is there any last thought before we let you go that you would like to convey to people who might be students or researchers or others about some of the successful things that you've done in New York that might make a difference in other parts of the country, not for a human rights commission, for instance, but just citizens that want to do something in their own local community?
Sure, I think that, you know, the fight for human rights is here, it's now, we're all in it. The human rights warriors that are here at today's conference, I think we're all in it to win it. That means that's a lot of hard work, and that's a lot of putting our heads together and working together. So if there are students out there who are interested, I hope they go into jobs or professions where they're able to really delve into human rights at whatever level they are interested in or they're capable of. I'd also say for folks who are in New York City, again, if you feel that you've been discriminated against or harassed, call 311, ask for human rights. Call 718-722-3131. We will act on your behalf. This is something very important to me as a commissioner. It's important to our mayor, and it's important to our city. And I want to thank you for taking your time out for this conference as well. I know you've had a busy travel schedule yourself.
Are you kidding? You know, as I said, Dennis DeLeon, an alum from my old law school, was a beloved leader for many years, and I'm glad I got an opportunity to talk to you. You're trend setting now like the agency was 20 years ago.
We're trying.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.